All right, so today I'm going a little random, right? I want to try to tell my story and through books, right? Like through titles, not all the way the entire books, but I try to tell my story through books because one of the reasons Jerome, people are like, Jerome, why you get so many books? Why you put so much effort? Like, because books changed my life, right? I just published my book here, right? How to Turn Videos into Money Fast. More about that to come in the future, right? But I published over 20 books, and I published them for several reasons, right? But enough about that, right? If you're interested in any of my books, most of them are on Amazon. Some are out of print, some aren't. Some you got to order. It's different things, right? So let me tell my story, right? You may have heard me tell this story before, but I'm gonna try to tell it random. And you see my bookshelf. At the top of my bookshelf is very intentional what's going on my bookshelf, right? These books here, they are the most influential books, right? Then I got some other books. It's like rhyme and reason behind all of my books. Okay, so the very first book I'm going to talk about is this book here. This book showed me a whole lot. I was working in corporate America, and I had a manager, and he would yell and he would curse. And I had this friend, Mike, and Mike was like, you ever read? And I was like, yeah, I read articles and I read stuff online. He was like, no, like books. And I was like, it's the same thing, right? He was like, no, it's not the same thing. And I forget exactly how I came across this book, 48 Laws of Power, but this is the book that started me on the path to changing my life. I started reading this book and I started to understand that I was so talented at my job that manager hated. He was kind of jealous, right? And his inside of his book, law number 1 is like never outshine the master. So I was unintentionally outshining the master, and in that case, it was the manager at work. So that kick started my path to like entrepreneurship. All right, I was like, I'm tired of getting yelled at. What can I do to escape this mayhem or this man yelling at me? And I came across this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Right, came across this book. And I read this book, and at the end, it was like, you should get in real estate. Essentially, that's what this book said. It said, if you want to be wealthy, you should be involved in real estate. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to get involved in real estate. And I learned that there were more books like this book, right? He had sequels and prequels or whatever you want to call it, right? And this book was very like theoretical and story driven. And I kind of like practical information more. And I came across this book, right? And I actually think this is the best book in the series. Since I'm pretty sure he's come up with more books, but this is my favorite book, right? Out of the ones that I've read, this is the next one. There's another one, Tax Free Wealth. I don't have it over here, but this book, it's really good, right? So if you're going to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you want to read this book too. And yeah. So that led me down the path of getting involved in real estate. And I got involved in real estate, and I don't have a book, right? I got involved in real estate, and I was helping out my local RIA. It's called a local RIA association. I was helping out my local RIA, and we were doing really well. I was helping them grow their events and grow their rooms. And then one day, I was elected to the board, right? And then one day, one of the board members, she asked me, she was like, they were getting burnt by their marketing company, and they asked me to do some marketing. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll help. And they had paid this company $5,000 per month. So they spent $60,000 for a whole year, and they didn't see any real results. And then she asked me, she was like, hey, can you work for me? And I was like, sure. And then I was like, okay, I had done a lot of stuff for them already, like free and voluntarily. And I was like, okay, it's time to pay. And my fee will be $3,000. When I told them that was my fee, they hesitated, and they gave me all this resistance. They made me put together all these proposals, thorough proposals, right? All this stuff together. And then for them to just say no. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. And I had to leave that company. And I went to go kind of start my own company. And that's my story there. Then I started to get into marketing, right? And more specifically, I came across this. Is this the book? I came across the book's down here. I came across these books. It's called The Trilogy by Russell Brunson, right? It's called Expert Secrets, .com Secrets, and Traffic Secrets, right? This is his trilogy. These are his books. And I was reading his books, and he kept mentioning this guy. Dan Kennedy. I was like, okay, he learned a lot from this Dan Kennedy guy. I would like to learn from the Dan Kennedy guy too. So I became interested in it, and I forget when I purchased Russell Brunson's book, but I had purchased it digital, like for 99 cents once upon a time. And I hadn't read it for like a few years because it was like hype and everybody was like on the bandwagon. And I just hate being on bandwagons. So I never like read the book because I didn't want to be part of the bandwagon. Right. And of course it was my loss because I hate following other people, but that's what the reality of it was. And then I came across, where's that book? Then I came across The Ultimate Sales Machine. No, where's my book? Then I came across, come on, man. I can't find it, but then I came across The Ultimate Sales Letter. So he's got another book. Dan Kennedy's got another book called The Ultimate Sales Letter. And I came across that book and I was like, okay, that book was good, but I'm not like really ready to like write sales letters. And it was a very practical book. And then it's over here somewhere. I just don't know where it's at. And then I was like, okay, what's another more generic book so I can start to understand the theories? And this is the book right here. This book changed my life. And this mentor, Dan Kennedy, changed my life. I read this book, and at the end of the book, right, there's Dan Kennedy. You can see him, right? At the end of this book, there was a specific call to action. And that call to action was like, hey, go to register your book, right? I'm reading it now. Register your book and explore the magnetic marketing implementation boot camp. And that's what I did. I went and I attended the boot camp. It was like $97 or something like that. I paid for that boot camp. And then when I paid for that boot camp, I learned, they taught me, they were letting me know like the biggest problem that people were having was like marketing. That was most businesses' biggest problem was marketing. And I was like, man, I'm interested in joining this boot camp. I'm interested in joining this coaching program. And at the time it was like $699, $69.99. It was like $7,000, $6,000, some few $1,000s. I was like, I'm interested. And I took the leap of faith and I joined that program. And when I joined that program, I met my mentor, Darcy. And one of the things I learned, Darcy was like, you know what? Every business needs a book. If you are out there teaching content, you should position yourself as an authority by publishing a book. And I was like, okay, Darcy, I'm going to do that. I'm listening to you. I had learned, like, you always want to listen to your mentors and your coach, right? And I had learned to do that. And I was like, all right, let me know how I can write a book. And she was like, actually, I have a book on how you can write a book. And this is the name of her book. And this is the book that got me into writing books. So I followed her process and I ended up writing, let me show you what it started off as. I ended up writing my book, the one that you see a lot now, which is my staple book. I ended up writing my book, but it started off like this. And I wrote this book and let me show you. I wrote this book. We're going to go find photos. Wrote that book, right? And once I published that book, here we go. Where is he? All right, there we go. So do a screen share. All right, I published that book. And then once I published it, I reached out to this guy right here, Ron LeGrand. And I was like, hey, Ron, I wrote a book. Would you be interested? I had met Ron through like a mastermind for that company that I was working in. And I asked him, I said, Ron, would you be interested in being contributing a foreword to my book? And he said, yes. He was like, yes. And I was like, oh, God, I got excited. And he helped me by publishing the foreword to my book. All right. So let me switch back over to me. All right, so here I am. I got that book published, and this is how it started off, right? And one of the things that I learned from Darcy, my mentor, that I just showed you this book here, one of the things that I learned from her, and this is where most people struggle and they hesitate and they get no results, is because they're so worried about being perfect. One of the things that I learned from Darcy was that version 1 is better than version none, right? Oh, I got these great ideas. Oh, it's got to be perfect. No, it doesn't, right? You got to get something out there. You got to get it going, right? So you see this book. When I first started off, and I'll show you that picture, right? Ron LeGrand published the foreword, but this was his first time. You see in this picture, this was his first time seeing a book. And he was like, son, I can't even read that. What is that? You have to be mindful of people with that don't have good eyes. And he's blunt. He was like, you got to be mindful of older people. I was like, okay, sure. I'll change it. I'll adjust what the cover looks like. And I did that. And I changed the cover on that book. And I eventually changed it so it could be more legible. And this is what it became. This is what it became. So it's a little bit easier to read. And that was my version 1, right? Version 1 is better. That was my version 2 or 3 or something like that. But I got it done. Whereas most people, they're like trying to get their stuff perfect, their videos, right? Their books, their social media posts, their emails, all that stuff. They're worried about being perfect and they're getting no results. So I published a book like this and I hit #1 bestseller on Amazon because I put the book out there, right? If I made it, maybe waited an hour later or a day later or two was perfect, probably would have never hit that, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about. Since then, the book has become, it's gone from this right here to this. This is what it looks like now. And it's just constant iterations and upgrades of what the book is. And here is like, you'll see like the limited edition. And even this, I've been working so hard to get this into a better format, right? This was supposed to be gold, but it's like a bright orange. And now I actually have like the gold color. So let me see if I can find that gold color. Book. Let's see. So I've been working to get it to a color that makes sense. And this is what it looks like. This is what the color looks like. Oh, it's hard for me to zoom in, but this is what the book looks like now, right? That's the gold color. It didn't come out perfect. I had to keep reiterating. Even this version is not perfect, right? You can see the white letters is like kind of hard to read, but I'm just showing that so you can understand like nothing comes out perfect. You have to work towards that, right? You have to work towards greatness. And most people get caught up and hesitant in what it is that they're doing. So I skipped some stuff in between, but I just wanted to share like my story, right? Like, how did I get into or get to where I got to, right? And like, I can probably tell my entire story through books. Like my entire top shelf is like stories and they're very relevant. Like these are all books that absolutely matter to me and they have some significant meaning or some significant impact. But I don't want this video to get too long. My name is Jerome. I appreciate you watching and I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.